last time I said I was really disappointed at the fifth Democratic debate. For one reason, I didn't think the moderators asked the right questions. And for another, Andrew Yang, again, got the least time to speak. This has happened again and again. So, but given the least amount of time, he still were able to develop and deliver concise and well thought through answers. So that's really, really impressive. And he also demonstrated that he has humor and he has thought through a lot of these things, even the tough questions about Putin. So I'm going to play what Andrew Yang said during the fifth debate, and then I'm going to offer some comments.
Yang, I want to bring you in. Mr. Yang.
Thank you,
Mr. Yang, you've made a virtue of your outsider status. You've never served in the military or in government. What has prepared you to respond to a terrorist attack or a major disaster?
Well, first, I just want to stick up for Tom. We have a broken campaign finance system, but Tom's been spending his own money fighting climate change. And you can't knock someone for having money and spending it in the right way, in my opinion.
Thanks, Andrew.
No problem. As Commander-in-Chief, I think we need to be focused on the real threats of the 21st century. And what are those threats? Climate change, artificial intelligence, loose nuclear material, military drones, and non-state actors. And if you look up, we're in the process of potentially losing the AI arms race to China right now because they have more access to more data than we do, and their government is putting billions of dollars to work subsidizing the development of AI in a way that we are not. We are 24 years behind on technology. And I can say that with authority because we got rid of the Office of Technology Assessment in 1995. Think about that timing. I guess they thought they'd invented everything. The next Commander-in-Chief has to be focused on the true threats of tomorrow, and that's what I will bring to the table as Commander-in-Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Andrea? We now focus on an issue facing many Americans, childcare and paid family leave. Here in Georgia, the average price of infant daycare can be as much as $8,500 per child per year. That's more than in-state tuition at a four-year public college in Georgia. Mr. Yang, what would you do as president to ease that financial burden?
There are only two countries in the world that don't have paid family leave for new moms, the United States of America and Papua New Guinea. That is the entire list, and we need to get off this list as soon as possible. I would pass paid family leave as one of the first things we do. I have two kids myself who are 4 and 7, one of whom is autistic and has special needs, and it's breaking families' backs. We need to start supporting our kids and families from the beginning, because by the time they're showing up to pre-K and kindergarten, in many cases they're already years behind. Studies have shown that 2/3 of our kids' educational outcomes are determined by what's happening to them at home. This is stress levels, number of words read to them as children, type of neighborhood, whether a parent has time to spend with them. So we need to have a freedom dividend in place from day one, $1,000 a month for every American adult, which would put, in many cases, $2,000 a month into families' pockets so that they can either pay for childcare or, if they want, stay home with the child. We should not be pushing everyone to leave the home and go to the workforce. Many parents see that trade-off and say if they leave the home and work, they're going to be spending all the money on childcare anyway. In many cases, it would be better if the parent stays home with the child.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang, if you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
It's a fun moment. Well, first I'd say, I'm sorry I beat your guy. Or not sorry.
Not sorry.
And second, I would say the days of meddling in American elections are over, and we will take any undermining of our democratic processes as an act of hostility and aggression. The American people would back me on this. We know that they've found an underbelly and they've been clawing at it, and it's made it so that we can't even trust our own democracy. The third thing I would say is that we're going to live up to our international commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances, including NATO. And it was James Mattis that said that the more you invest in diplomacy, the less you have to spend on ammunition. That has to be the path forward to help build an international consensus, not just against Russia, but also to build a coalition that will help us put pressure on China in terms of their treatment of their ethnic minorities and what's going on in Hong Kong. I want to propose a new world data organization, like a WTO for data, because right now, unfortunately, we're living in a world where data is the new oil and we don't have our arms around it. These are the ways that we'll actually get Russia to the table and make it so they have to join the international community and stop resisting appeals to the world order.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Okay, so I'd like to make a few points. I really like the interaction between Yang and other candidates, such as Tom Steyer, right? So it seems Andrew Yang was the only one who was actually making some friends during the debate. So if you recall from one of the previous debates, Tulsi Gabbard referred to Yang as my friend Andrew Yang. So that was really good. And I think next time, or sometime in the near future, Tom Steyer probably will also refer to Andrew Yang as my friend. And I hope if he dropped out at some point, then he would, come to support Andrew Yang's campaign. That would be fantastic.
Rachel? Mr. Yang, what would you do about the issue of white supremacist violence?
Well, first we have to designate white supremacist terrorism as domestic terrorism so that the Department of Justice can properly measure it. I talked to an anti-hate activist named Christian Picciolini who told me about how he was radicalized over a 10-year period. He said he was a lonely 14-year-old and that he was reached out to by a hate group and he wound up joining it for a decade. Now he's out and he's helping convert people out of those hate groups and back into the rest of society. But what he told me was that if anyone had reached out to him when he was that hurt, broken 14-year-old boy, he would have gone with them. He said if it had been a coach, I would have gone with him. If it had been a mentor or teacher, I would have gone with them. But instead it was a hate group. So what we have to do is we have to get into the roots of our communities and create paths forward for men in particular who right now are falling through the cracks. And when you look at gun violence in this country, 96+% of the shooters we're talking about are young boys and young men. We have to, as a country, start finding ways to turn our boys into healthy, strong young men who do not hate, but instead feel like they have paths forward in today's economy.
Mr. Yang, thank you for that.
I'm here.
So I also like the fact that Yang just used facts and numbers, right? And you can see that he did talk to a lot of people and he's using all these facts gathered to make his points. And also, he's able to handle very tough questions, like the question on, what do you want to say to Vladimir Putin? And that was probably an unexpected question, but he handled it really, really well and showed his humor. That I thought was really, really good. And he was also able to relate the questions to his key policies, such as freedom dividends, right? Tie it to the needs of people, the needs to move our society forward, right? And I wish that he had talked about democracy daughters too, but maybe he's saving his ammunition for the next time. But I was hoping that he could, use the very few questions asked to deliver his key policies from different perspectives. And I think that would be very, very nice. Let's listen to his closing statement.
Here with my wife, Evelyn, tonight. We have two young boys, Christopher and Damien. How many of you all are parents like us here in the room? So if you're a parent, you've had this thought, maybe you've been afraid to express it, and it is this: our kids are not all right. They're not all right because we're leaving them a future that is far darker than the lives that we have led as their parents. We are going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history, the fourth industrial revolution, and it is pushing more and more of our people to the side. We talk as if Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems. He is not. He is a symptom, and we need to cure the disease. Now, my first move was not to run for president of the United States, because I am not insane. My first move was to go to DC, talk to our leaders, and say, technology is ripping us apart, immigrants are being scapegoated, our kids are being left behind, and the American dream that my parents came here to find is dying before our eyes. And the people in Washington, D.C. had nothing for this. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to talk about an issue they don't think they have a solution for. I'm not running for president because I fantasized about being president. I'm running for president because, like many of you here in this room tonight, I'm a parent and a patriot, and I have seen the future that we're leaving for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. We need to create a new way forward for our people. If you want to join us in rewriting the rules of the 21st century economy, go to yang2020.com and make it so that we can look our kids in the eyes and say to them, and believe it, your country loves you, your country values you, and you will be all right.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Okay, so I think that is the best closing statement, okay? Not one of the best, the best. And I really like the fact that Andrew Yang didn't do any name calling except when he said, oh, I want to solve the problem that got Donald Trump elected. Okay, so he didn't even, call out Trump or any other, political figures. Like, for example, when you refer to, people in Washington, D.C., like the leaders, he didn't say, who he talked to. And nor did he attack any of the other candidates. Right, so he's just presenting his solutions. So he's just here, not to compete for this presidency. He didn't have the dying desire to become the president. Like he said, his first instinct is not to become the president because he's not insane. I really like that line, and I think the audience enjoyed it too. And so his sole purpose is to solve the problems for the society, for our children, right? He wanted to make sure, our next generation will have a future that will be all right. He told people that he has already seen the future, and that is darker than what he expected, and that's not something he's willing to accept. So I really like it, and, his presenting himself as a parent, as a patriot, who has this superior vision, who wants to do something for the country, for our children. And so he's also the only one who invited people to not only visit his website, but also join the force in rewriting the rules for the 21st century. So if you notice that his policies actually have evolved over time. So he's been taken, it's been very open-minded and taken in good suggestions to enrich and to evolve his platform. For example, the freedom dividend, at the beginning, it was just for people, from 18 years old till 64, but now it's from 18 till you expire. And he's also, stacking the freedom dividend now on top of the, Social Security insurance and some of the other benefits. So I think he's really open-minded to good ideas, and his presenting himself as a problem solver, a leader that has the ambition and confidence to move the country forward. And I think as long as more people have access to this, his messages and his platform, his policies, more people will come to realize that this is the leader, the kind of leader we actually need. And the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. So I think although he got the least time to speak, he still, every time he talked, he really landed very well. And that's in fact why some people, even from CNN, consider him as one of the winners of last night. So let's take a quick look at this article. So this is written by Chris Citiza, winners and losers from the fifth Democratic debate. So he listed Andrew Yang as one of the winners. Right? Yang didn't get a chance to speak a single word in the first 30 minutes. But when he did get a chance to speak, he came across as by far the most relatable candidate on stage. Right? That's really good. It's very, very impressive. Yan's line when asked what he would say to Vladimir Putin after getting elected president, "Sorry, I beat your guy," landed very well. Yan's candidacy still feels like it is too far in front of where people are. He is not wrong about data being the new oil, right? So this is he always proposes these new ideas that make sense. And there are strong defenses for his universal basic income proposal. So this universal basic income proposal has been accepted or gradually being accepted by more and more even candidates, right? So Elizabeth Warren recently started to say, she will consider universal basic income, right? Even Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg started to talk about the fourth industrial revolution and automations and stuff. So so he concluded that Andrew Yang has drastically overperformed expectations. And in fact, I recall that Choctaw said recently that he's done underestimating Andrew Yang. So he's now going to overestimate him, okay, and see if he falls short of the expectation. And here's another article written by Todd Graham from CNN. And so he also considered Andrew Yang got an A, right, along with Pete Buttigieg. So very quickly, he said, "I don't grade on a lack of speaking time since it is not the candidate's fault." So he's a coach, right, debate coach. "I coach my teams to make fewer arguments than our competitors, but to make sure the positions we take are thorough and well-grounded." And he said, "I dare you to find a bad answer from Andrew Yang in the last night's debate. Hint, you won't. He scored an A from me every single time he spoke. I've never witnessed that before, right?" And he said, Andrew Yang's answers about some of the threats to American society once again brought new ideas to the debate stage. Artificial intelligence, which he mentioned in earlier debates, is the future threat that must be taken seriously, right? This is something none of the other candidates are addressing, right? Automation, artificial intelligence, and setting up something like World Trade Organization for data. His ingenuity was astounding. Right? Bold ideas suit Yang Weir. The well thought out and pragmatic. Well thought out and pragmatic, they get high points in debate. So it's really, really impressive that even people from CNN think highly of Andrew Yang's performance as one of the winners of the last debate. All right. That's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And like and subscribe, and leave your comments below. Who do you think are the winners and losers, and what do you expect Andrew Yang to perform next time, or do you think he will appear on the debate stage in December? He still needs another qualifying poll. But according to Yang, he has seen the future, right? He has done the math. So we're very, very hopeful. All right. Bye.